Are you all seeing the PPT now?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, from the last class, we have not finished yet the history of public health. So we'll continue from there. We were saying about the different stages, the different eminent people who worked initially in the public health field. And the last person who we saw was Semmelweis. If you have any trouble with my voice or PPT, just let me know, okay? Just trying this Teams for the first time. So I really won't get to know if you don't say me anything, any issues. So Semmelweis was the last person whom we were discussing and told you his importance that he brought the hand washing and how this simple hand washing was able to reduce the maternal mortality. The reason for that, the doctors were not maintaining the hygiene after coming from the postmortem or dealing with the cadaver, and hence their cases, their obstetric cases, it had a increased number of mortality. But once the hand washing was introduced, the mortality rate in that ward also reduced drastically. So little, small little changes bringing about in the matter of hygiene, a slight change in our diet, everything was making a great impact. And that was one importance of this public health. Because when we are trying to cure a disease, the kind of amount we have to spend on it is very much large. If you go to a GP to take a lab test or to do some advanced test, ultrasonic sound or USS study, MRI, X-ray. You know the kind of amount we have to spend for all those things, and then for the medicine, other kind of treatment, surgery, or whatever. But if it is possible for us to prevent the disease, then that prevention is possible in very little amount, and then we can save ourselves from the ill health. So that's the importance for prevention come more importantly. You don't have to spend much, you just have to make slight changes in the lifestyle, the practices we follow, and then what we see is a good health where we can save a lot of resources, especially in form of money. So and according to this, yeah, this was the chart we were following, the public health, evolution of public health through different eras. And are you now seeing the PPT itself?
Yeah,
Can
we
see.
can see.
Yeah, you can
Okay,
see.
okay, okay. So then we got into the period in the 19th century, the bacteriological revolution. So the bacteriological revolution, it happened during the period of, I mean, it started from the period of Louis Pasteur. He's known as the father of microbiology. And it was passed on to by Koch, Joseph Lister, etc. And during this period, it is called as the golden period of bacteriology. There a lot of microbiological or organisms were discovered, both bacterial and viral. A lot of organisms were discovered during this period of Pasteur, Koch, Lister, etc. And Pasteur is also the one of the proponents of vaccines. He introduced these vaccines, the vaccines which is suitable for cholera among the domestic hen, that chicken, the fall cholera, not the human beings cholera, but the cholera that used to appear in the fall. Then for anthrax and also for rabies. So, if you remember, vaccines were first introduced by actually Edward Jenner for smallpox. Here, he actually copied the idea of Chinese people, the variolation, and he then took the cowpox in that serum, and he inoculated that with a boy. And then the first vaccine. The first vaccine is always the smallpox vaccine, which was discovered or invented by uh, Edward Jenner. But still, Louis Pasteur is also considered as a proponent of vaccination because what exactly happens in vaccines, it was able to be described by Louis Pasteur. Jenner did the method, but he was not able to describe what exactly was happening. That description was able to be given by um, Pasteur, and also he were able to discover, not discover, he actually invented the vaccine for anthrax and also rabies. A very big contribution from him. At this time, so we are discussing about the different branches of public health, which were definitely developing in different eras. So at that time, after to the bacteriological, the genetics began to develop. Gregor Mendel came up, who is known as the father of genetics. There were discovery of chromosomes in the later part of the 19th century. Genetics began to develop. James Watson and Francis Crick, also Maurice Wilkins, they came up in the mid 20th century with the double helical structure of the DNA. So all this discovery of chromosome DNA, it led into a vast development in the field of genetics. So nowadays, as like if we are going to compare the bacteriological revolution, if we go into the current medical field, out from homeopathy for a while, and we go to the scientific world, the allopathic medicine or their side, the revolution is now happening in this field, the genetics. More and more scientists are involved in studying about the genetic diseases and what are the ways to control those diseases. So, a lot of development, a lot of revolutionary changes are happening nowadays in this field of genetics. So, this started later in 19th century, which went through a great development in the mid of 20th century with the discovery of DNA structure. And they got to know more about genes, everything. And nowadays, it is the genetic screening that is going on, genetic counseling, and drug development for specific genome associated diseases like Tay Sachs and thalassemia. So, scientists are were those always interested in those things which they were not able to crack. So, initially, the challenging thing was all the communicable diseases, so infectious diseases, and you were after to the organisms to find out the vaccines, etc. And now that has been done. Almost infectious diseases vaccines, unless it's a newly emerging disease. We already have vaccines for many of the diseases. And now something that quite intriguing, the scientist is actually the genetic diseases, the high emergence of genetic diseases nowadays. So now they have this genetic screening, the genetic counseling, usually especially given for couples who are marrying from family or those who are having some genetic diseases. So counseling is being given to them, especially regarding the birth of the child, the care to be taken. And they are also trying to develop drugs for genomic diseases like this just example, many of the diseases, especially the inborn errors of metabolism, phenylketonuria, maple syrup urine disease, so many genetic diseases. Now they are trying to discover medicines for that. Another branch in public health that developed during this period was the vector-borne diseases. And vector-borne diseases, it is called for those things. The vectors are actually these insects or the invertebrates. It can be insects, it can be lice, mosquito, fleas, um, then what is this? Cyclops. All these invertebrates or those organisms which doesn't have a vertebra, these organisms are one of the most important cause for the transmission of many diseases. So when the scientists were studying about the disease transmission, how the disease is being transmitted to man, they were able to discover a group of diseases which is caused by vector. vectors or some other insects or the invertebrates. And most of them, the most important among them is filariasis, malaria, it's still a big issue, yellow fever, typhus fevers, etc. And also the tapeworms. The guinea worm disease, another name for that is dracunculiasis. Now, this is a kind of disease that has been reducing almost to the path of eradication, not exactly done, but on the path of eradication. So, they discovered the importance of the vectors in transmitting diseases. And the vector borne disease in public health is a different branch now in public health. Immunology came up because during uh, Louis Pasteur's time itself, new vaccines were invented, and he was able to somewhat explain what is happening during the process of vaccination. But as the science were developing, it gained so much knowledge about various processes. For example, it got to know what is happening during the process of inflammation. It was able to explain the process of immunity, the two types of immunity, the humoral immunity and the cellular immunity. Humoral immunity means the immunity generated by antibodies, and cellular immunity means the immunity generated by the T cells, the T lymphocytes. So they were able to explain what are the difference between these two immunity, how it is working in our body. The scientists were able to discover the active and passive immunity. And this is one of the most important change or an achievement, an outstanding achievement that happened in the 20th century public health. Because even now, when we say public health, although there are different branches that now we see the nutrition, um, and then the vector borne or whatever the sexually diseases, maternal and childhood, which will be coming later. But the most important one, even now, if it is an infectious disease, it's to control the disease mainly by the process of vaccination. When we come to public health or community medicine, because we are in the process of preventing the disease, still, the most important weapon, which is considered very effective in controlling an infectious disease, especially in a developing country, not so much in a developed country, but in a developing country or a low middle income country, it is this vaccination. So even when COVID-19 came, uh, scientists were after to find out a vaccination for that. So every new disease comes, they are trying to find out a new vaccine. And if the vaccine is found out, their work is almost done from the public health point of view. So these vaccinations, it has the main idea mainly from the active and the passive immunity. You know what is active immunity? Active immunity can be acquired in two ways. One way is naturally, that is the person is having or acquiring an infection. Like today, I'm acquiring in case chickenpox, and I have never had chickenpox. So if I'm having chickenpox, that is a natural way of acquiring a immunity, because then the chickenpox virus has entered into my body, and my body will be slowly producing antibodies against it. So I develop a natural immunity against chickenpox. But in case um, for tuberculosis. I never had tuberculosis when I was born, according to the criteria that is being followed in my country back in India. I should be vaccinated with BCG or the vaccine for tuberculosis at the time I was born. Even my permission was not asked at the time I was born. My family, they of course they have to give the permission. I mean, yeah, we have the option of not taking also, but mostly the parents do allow. So most of the children that is born in India in a hospital, almost all of them, they have to take BCG the moment they are being born. So that is like a introducing bacteria or virus artificially into our body, not a natural process of disease development, but artificially. And then our antibody will be produced against that bacteria. So that is a way of active immunity itself. My own immunity is produced against that bacteria or the virus. So that is an active immunity. It's two processes though. One is by naturally acquiring an infection and then get activated, or injecting the bacteria in a smaller dose, and then my immunity is working against it. However, there is an active immunity that is being produced. And passive immunity means you are getting ready-made antibodies from somewhere. It can also be happen naturally and artificially. Naturally, like from mothers. You might have learned in some of your classes, like mothers via their placenta and also via the breast milk. Antibodies are transferred to the fetus. So if it is via placenta, it is the antibody IgG that moves from mother's blood to fetus blood, and if it is via breast milk, it is IgA variety. So the ready-made immunoglobulins or the antibodies are transferred from mother to child. That is a natural way in which passive immunity is given. In that process, the child or the recipient's body is not producing its own antibody. The antibody is induced by some other process. So this is a natural process from mother to child, the transfer of other immunoglobulins. And it is also possible that we can inject the immunoglobulins later to exposure. Like I don't know, is it very common over here? But after to the dog bite, like to prevent the rabies, because if the dog bite is too severe, probability is the very big probability is the for the rabies to develop. So for that condition, we don't wait until the body start producing its own antibody. The ready-made immunoglobulins are injected directly into the body, which will act against that bacteria. Otherwise, the bacteria may result even in the death of the person. Similar is like the immunoglobulins that is injected after to a snake bite. We can't just wait, okay, let the body produce its own immunity, its own, because the immunity process in the body, you have already learned in immunology, it will take some day for it to develop, like for 1 week or 10 days. Only after that, the body will be start producing the antibodies, the effective antibodies. So when the snake has bitten, we can't just leave the person like that, okay, then let your active immunity now get developed, or your body on produce your own antibody. We can't let that person to wait. So ready-made antibody have to be given, and that is passive immunity in the artificial form. So when the scientists were able to explain all these immunological processes, the difference between humoral and the cellular immunity, the active and passive immunity, that was very much essential to produce the vaccines. According to these principles only, they started producing the vaccines which will be helpful in active immunity, and also the immunoglobulins which help in passive immunity. So a lot of vaccines were developed, mainly for diphtheria, tetanus, typhoid, TB, yellow fever, poliomyelitis, you name it, we have it. Except for some, um, what is that, the viral diseases, leprosy, we have vaccines for almost all the diseases. How much it is effective, that is second part of the question, but we do have vaccines. And once the scientists were able to develop the vaccines for all these infectious diseases, they got into another challenge, that is it possible to control the chronic diseases using the vaccines? And yes, because one of the chronic disease that we consider of nowadays is cancer, and cancer of liver. Most important reason for the development of cancer in liver is hepatitis B. So in a way, though it is cancer, an underlying reason for that is an infectious cause. So the scientists were able to develop vaccine against hepatitis B, and thus they were able to reduce the cancer of liver. Likewise, the cancer of cervix. One of the most important cause for cancer of cervix is HPV infection or human papilloma virus. So now they do have, or we do have vaccination against this virus. And gastric cancer or the stomach cancer, the organism which is responsible for this is one of the cause, okay, not that this is the sole cause of those cancers, but the most important cause and one of the most important cause for the development of this cancer is Helicobacter pylori. So they have vaccination against this organism also. So in that manner, a new stage is developing in public health, that via the vaccination, the scientists are not only trying to control the infectious diseases, but also those chronic diseases which are having a infectious basis for their development. Another section, that is the maternal and child health in public health. So this is another important branch in public health. They began to give more importance to the women and children, because children are the coming up generation. Their health is very important, and their health is very much dependent on maternal health. If mother is having anemia, she's not having a proper nutrition, she's not having a good health when she is giving birth to a baby, of course the health of baby will also be very much in problem. And when you learn more in public health, community medicine, you'll see the standard of living or the status of a country in a health manner is determined by two factors. One is by maternal mortality rate or maternal mortality ratio, and another is infant mortality rate. You will learn what are these things in our coming up section in epidemiology. So, in simple words, maternal mortality rate or ratio, you understand that it is about the death rate among the mothers, and infant mortality is the death rate among the infants. So, these two factors, there are various other mortality factors, etc. We'll see in the epidemiology chapter, but the most important one is this MMR and IMR, or maternal mortality and also infant mortality, because that shows the level of or the status of the healthcare of a particular country. When we go to very developed countries like UK and all, the maternal mortality ratio should be in 20 something or even less than that. But when we go to some countries like Sierra Leone, I think it is so pronounced. It's one of the African country and very poor. The maternal mortality rate over there is in 300 or 400 per 100,000 live births. And that shows the status of the health care in that particular country. Um, it is a very big determinant. So this also became an important branch of public health, or I could say this is one of the most important branch after to the vaccination. So the preventive care for the special health needs of women and children developed in the late 19th century. It encompasses prenatal, the antenatal, before birth, postnatal, and also child care, especially under 5 years. Also, the school health supervision. So I have just kept a graph over here to show the maternal mortality. And you can see in 1950, I don't know which countries this is belonging to. Maybe I just randomly took one picture from Google and pasted it over here. So I really don't know which country, but I believe this is of a industrialized country or a well-developed country, because in 1950, the maternal mortality rate was 530, and then over the decades, it went on decreasing, and in 2012, it is 25.6. Quite impressive. And this is not of India, I'm quite sure, because in India, even at this time, like in 2020 or 2018, the last census, it shows the maternal mortality rate is still 103 in India. So this 25.6, it's an impressive number. So I believe it is of some industrialized country. So this shows actually the health status, why we should give importance to the maternal or MCH services. That's what we say in short, MCH. The importance of MCH in public health. The nutrition in public health, we already saw that earlier in the 16th or late 16th or early 17th century itself, scurvy, James Lind, he discovered that scurvy could be cured by just lemon. But after to him, during the late 19th century, there were discovery of other vitamins also, A, the B complex, D, E, K, etc. And then they discovered there are many diseases which can be developed due to the deficiency of vitamins. So each one you may be knowing, like vitamin A, if it is deficient, it is the night blindness, xerophthalmia, then the keratomalacia, etc. All the vision related thing. And if it is B complex, according to the vitamins involved, there are deficiency diseases. Um, then vitamin D, rickets, osteomalacia. So all these diseases they were able to discover. They were able to connect it one or the other vitamin, and then the idea of fortification came. Now, some of you have done actually nutrition. Who among you did nutrition?
Lenny?
Okay, Lenny. So, Lenny, you might be having already a very good knowledge about this, the food fortification, because this is an important uh, avenue in case of public health, because by the means of fortification they are doing it in a very low cost. In a low cost they are trying to reach a large number of population by adding extra nutrients. So nowadays when you go to grocery shop and when you're shopping, and if you are interested to go to the backward part of that cover, not only for the price but also for the composition and all those things. We may be going for the things, sometimes it may be showing fortified with vitamin A, D, etc., or EK, etc. So in those things, in those food materials where there is no particular vitamin, they just add some vitamins so that it become nourishing. For example, there is something which is called as vanaspati, that is, or dalda we say back in India. It is a low cost of ghee. Ghee that is actually made from pure cow's milk, and it is pretty costly actually. And many of the Indian sweets we use ghee, so not all the families in India would be able to buy ghee, because the pure ghee means pure cow's milk, which is going to be pretty costly. So a cheaper option for many of the Indian family is to buy this dalda or vanaspati, which is made from vegetable oils. And this vegetable oils, it doesn't have vitamin A or D. So they fortify this vanaspati with vitamin A and D. So vanaspati as such, it doesn't have any nutritive value. Uh, but then when it is getting fortified, people are getting nourishment, some form of nourishment in that way. So, like that, they introduced many of the food with this idea of fortification. In India, there is another problem, another nutritional problem, that is the thyroid diseases. And mostly it was hypothyroidism. Uh, and because in some part of India only, it is the coastal region. Most of the India, the central part, the northern part, they were not having sea around. So the people who were living in the coastal region, having these fishes, etc., from the sea, they never had this problem of iodine lacking. But the people in North India, towards North India, um, they don't have the seas around them. So even if they are having fish, it is not from the sea, but the freshwater fishes they are having. So the iodine content in that is very less. And also, most of the people in North India are vegetarians actually. So they were lacking this iodine content, which resulted in a high incidence of hypothyroidism in India. And in India, at one stage, I think it started from 1900s, and by 2000s or 2010, in India, it was not possible for us to get a salt which is not fortified with iodine. Almost all, because I remember during my childhood we used to have two type of salts. One is the solid one, and another the powdered one. But it was not until I was 10 or 15, I remember, it was not fortified with iodine. But later, as the years passed on, initially we stopped getting that rocky salt or that solid one. It was completely stopped for a while. But later, now we are again getting it, and the powdered one were all fortified with iodine. It was not possible to get a non-fortified salt. Um, and then when this rocky salt or the solid salt that came again into the market, it was also fortified. So this was helpful to some extent in India that hypothyroidism was reducing in those places where there is a iodine lacking. But now we are seeing another change that in Kerala, I know about Kerala only, I don't know about other states. In Kerala, the cases of hyperthyroidism is now increasing because in Kerala, the people over there is already accustomed of having the sea fishes. We never had this iodine deficiency. Only, or maybe the people in the northern part of Kerala who were in the hilly region, they might have had, but not the people in the coastal region of Kerala. So government was completely blindly giving only the option of fortified salt. People in Kerala now they are seeing this option also, and I'm very sure nowadays it is very possible for us to get the salt which is non-iodinated. So when we do something very blindly, seeing that okay this is a better method, so make it a fortified thing, something it shouldn't be blindly followed because there might be people who need that and there might be people who don't need that. We need actually to differentiate. However, when we make a if we don't mind or if we make this negligible, the appearance of diseases in some section, because if we take the whole of India, the whole of India is actually benefited by fortification. I can never say against that. But it's only the people in the coastal part of Kerala or some other region already they didn't have any lack of iodine. When iodine was forcefully induced in another way into their life, it resulted in hypothyroidism. But when compared to the change it brought about overall, the reduction in the hypothyroidism cases, the increased hypothyroidism in Kerala is negligible actually, but still, every time they're studying, they're changing. So the idea of fortification is also wonderful, and that developed because nutrition became a part of public health. Then the same idea it came with fluoridation. There are countries in which excess fluorides are present in the water. Excess of fluorine is also not ideal in excess of fluorine is also not ideal. Excess of fluorine can cause the condition like fluorosis. And the decrease of fluorine in water is also not ideal because it can result in dental caries. So it is like a double-edged sword. And there are countries in which excess fluorine is added so that the complaints of fluorosis doesn't happen. Iodization of salt, I told you. So, nutrition is a key issue in the new public health with international movements to eradicate vitamin and mineral or rather micronutrient deficiency conditions. So then, after this bacteriological revolution, they got into the period of social hygiene, social medicine during 1900 and 1970. So social hygiene, they started giving once again importance to the hygiene related in socially, especially we can connect it to the control of venereal diseases because they were studying more about the sexually transmitted diseases. During that was the development of many of the no, AIDS was discovered in 1980. But before to that, gonorrhea, syphilis was so prevalent, and this was the time they gave more importance to control of STDs, to regulate prostitution, disseminate sexual education, etc. During this period. So the period of social hygiene, it started from the late 19th to the early 20th century, and it was an attempt by progressive era reformers. And social medicine, This is comparatively a newer concept, though it started in 1900s to 1970. It never stopped. I could say that it is still in a development phase. People are giving more importance to this. More of it is in theoretical, but now people are realizing what the importance of social medicine is. And social medicine, it is mainly three principles that for any disease, there is some factors like social and economic conditions. These factors profoundly impact health, disease, and the practice of medicine. And when we see, it is true actually. Tuberculosis is a disease which is caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Mostly, there are other bacteria also involved. However, it is mostly Mycobacterium tuberculosis. But it is not that every people in this world who are exposed to that bacteria, they are developing tuberculosis. No, it's not the condition. Even now, TB is developed in those people who are living in poverty, in an overcrowded situation, in a poor socio-economic situation. Bacteria is there, yes, but these social factors should also be there for the development of tuberculosis. So the scientists began to understand the importance of society or the cultural or the economic factors for the development of a disease. And the health of the population is a matter of social concern. It is not just an individual concern that you are sick, okay, then it's your matter. No, it depends upon the society in different manners, not just the infectious disease. If it is an infectious disease, of course, we can say, okay, that person has to be isolated or quarantined or whatever, because it shouldn't come to the main population. That is applicable in an infectious disease, but the society is also involved in case of a chronic disease. Nowadays, around us, we know the chronic diseases, especially the coronary heart diseases, coronary arterial diseases or the heart diseases. That is increasing. Heart attacks, um, myocardial infarction, uh, cardiac arrest, everything is on increase. And this is affecting the main population also. Like a family in which only one person is earning, the father is earning, and his sudden death at the age of 50, it is going to affect the economical condition or the financial condition of that family, their education, everything. So one particular disease, and if it is happening in many family, this whole society is getting going to be affected. So now we know that a disease, if it is affecting a person, maybe it is infectious, maybe it is chronic, but it is not just the issue of that single person. It is affecting the whole society in one way or the other. And hence, the society should promote health through both individual and social means. So that's why when this came up, the COVID-19, it was a massive mass attempt from our part also, the government part also, bringing a lockdown. We, the patients, becoming more responsible. Not we get to know that we are having COVID positive or something. We were isolating ourselves from the other population so that they don't get infected. So kind of social responsibility came up. And this social responsibility, the social involvement is what is meant by social medicine. And after to that stage, it became the era of globalization. Now, health, it is no longer a matter of individual or society or of a country, but it has become an international importance. And when is that the international importance or globalization of health actually started? It actually started after World War One. In World War One, after to that, the havoc created after to the World War One, the world leaders understood that there is a need for an international cooperation in health. And then the League of Nations Health Organization was formed. However, it was a failure. The World War II happened, and after the World War II, in 1948, the WHO was formed. So we can say that the League of Nations Health Organization, that was the pioneer of World Health Organization. But the League of Health Nations Health, it was a big failure politically. And that's when World Health Organization, when it was formed, it decided to be a non-political association. All the countries, whichever who wants to be a part of it, they can become a part of that World Health Organization. They can be members, but however, it never wanted to be under control of any of the country politically or whatsoever, because the initially formed one, the League of Nations Health Organization, it was under the political control of the bigger nations at that time. So they were working according to their wish, and hence when WHO was formed after to the Second World War, they decided to be politically neutral. But if you ask me personally, though, I mean, it's not my personal opinion also, if you Google, you will get to know, though World Health Organization claims to be non-political, it is not exactly that much. It may be non-political, but it is still under the power of those countries which sponsor a lot of money for it. So the sponsorship actually matters. So whichever country is giving a lot of sponsorship financially to WHO. WHO is kind of partial to those countries. Anyway, we can say it is politically neutral. And after the World Health Organization, the International Red Cross was formed, and International Red Cross is the and in every country they have their own. Most of the countries, I think, whichever wants to be a part of that, they have a National Red Cross, which is a part of that International Red Cross. Then UNICEF, which is mainly intended for the children health and development. So UNICEF is also there, and it is under the leadership of WHO, the eradication of smallpox was achieved by 1977. The eradication was achieved by 1977. Yes, the last case of smallpox, it appeared in 1977 in Somalia, but it was in 1980 when WHO officially declared that smallpox was eradicated. And now the world is moving towards the potential eradication of polio, which exemplifies the importance of international cooperation in the health sector. And now, as a part of this globalization, we do have MDG, the Millennium Development Goals, which was there from 2000 to 2015. And from then on, from 2015, we have the SDG, or the Sustainable Developmental Goals, which will be there until 2030. So all these things came up because of this international cooperation in the health sector. So now the current world is going towards actually epidemiological transition. Uh, but when I was a student, I could very easily say that epidemiological transition was going on at that period. But now I'm not sure whether I would be able to say this epidemiological transition, because it is still undergoing some changes. And anyway, because this is a very important term in case of public health, so we'll see what is actually epidemiological transition. So transition, it is a changing period or transit is happening, and that is happening in the epidemiology. And what is happening is actually initially, when we are starting from the 16th century or the revolution, the factory, uh, when it was the industrial revolution or the factory revolution that started, at that time the black line, it actually indicates the non-communicable disease, and the green line, it indicates the infectious disease. So in that initial era, when the people were not so careful about their hygiene or health, it was the infectious disease which was very high. So from that time period, maybe if we draw it the time period over here, it may be 1900s. So in 1900s, the death rate, this is the mortality rate, mostly the death happened due to infectious disease. But as the time developed, so many changes were brought about. The health promotion was given importance, and we saw the importance given to the MCH scale, immunization, then what else? the changes they brought about in the genetic diseases, and so much else. They were able to reduce the infectious diseases. So many environmental changes also they brought about. When I say genetic disease, not it is not connected to infectious. Sorry for that, Mark. Mainly the infectious diseases they were able to control because of the production of all the vaccines. So now we could say that the death due to infectious disease was reducing, but not so much because after 2000 we were seeing the emergence of SARS, then MERS, then COVID-19, so H1N1 in between. So we can never, I could, that's what I told during my studentship, I could say, yes, it was the transition that was happening. The infectious diseases or the death due to infectious diseases were reducing. But the non communicable diseases like heart disease, cancer, stroke, diabetes mellitus, hypertension, it was not known at that time. But that started to evolve, and now mostly the death is happening due to these diseases. But after the COVID-19, I could say that this is a double burden now. More especially in the developing countries. Not in the developed countries like UK, US, it is still this transition. They are mostly affected because of the non-communicable diseases. The mortality rate is still because of non-communicable diseases. But in developing countries, it is almost going equal par, I could say, because the death due to infectious diseases are also increasing due to many of the emerging and non re-emerging type of infectious diseases. So in case of developed countries, they are going towards the epidemiological transition in which the mortality is mostly due to NCDs. And in case of developing countries, they are having a double burden in which the mortality rate is increasing due to NCDs and also due to communicable diseases. So achievement in public health in the 20th century, whatever I have given here, it is of actually USA, but this is applicable in all the industrialized countries. So there is a control of infectious disease, vaccination, motor vehicle safety, safer workplaces, decline in death from coronary heart disease, strokes, safer and healthier food, healthier mothers and babies, family planning, fluoridation, recognition of tobacco as health hazard. This motor vehicle safety. I don't know how many of you had already visited India. In a few months, you are going to. Even if you have not visited, in a few months you are going to go to India, and you're going to reach one of the crazy place in India. Okay, when it goes for the motor vehicles, one of the craziest place you are going to visit. But you will see in whole of India, the way the vehicles are drove over the maybe in cities some kind of traffic regulation you can see, but in most of the pocket roads you will never know from where the vehicle can come, from where the vehicle can hit. It is never so easy when you're walking on Indian roads. You need to be extra careful, uh, and because I'm over here and I see the kind of vehicles, the number of vehicles which is passing through, the speed in which the vehicles are passing through in this nation, but still the accidents will be very less when compared to that in India. So those developments, it is seen in the developed countries, but in a developing country, it is still a very great risk. And India daily, how many people die because of road traffic accidents? We really need to check into the numbers, and that's actually very massive. The people dying and the people getting disabled due to road traffic accidents, it's very massive actually. The challenges in the 21st century. So it is now the slave trafficking and genocide, the drug resistant diseases, especially tuberculosis like, terrorism, which includes even bioterrorism. H1N1 was a part of it, warfare, Climate change, another important one. Natural and human-made disasters. So the new public health faces ethical issues that relate to health expenditure, priorities, and social philosophy. So these are the challenges for us in the 21st century. So that's about the history of public health. When is our class ending? We started at 11:30, right? 12:25. Do you need a short 5 minutes break? It's okay,
I'm
we can.
okay.
Okay. And I take the next PPT. I seeing the new PPT. Yeah.
Yes.
So these are the sections. I think when I forwarded you the PPT, I just kept only the initial three because the last one, I don't think I have shared it with you. Maybe we'll go through the political situations. So, what do we mean by the term clinical situations? A clinical situation, of course, a patient is coming to you, and the patient can come to you with an acute disease, a chronic disease, emergency condition, surgical conditions, and mental health conditions. And this mental health, we can put it under acute disease and also chronic disease. It just depends, but they just specified or separated mental health issues to give more importance to that because until now or even now the health practitioners and also the patients they consider mental health to be not so important. Oh, mental health diseases means only the actual schizophrenia conditions. They don't even consider. Now there are changes, of course. The depression is given much importance nowadays, but still, the people who give importance to depression, they'll be like, okay, it's a natural part of life. What is there to care? So just to make that stand out, mental health, they separated it out actually. So the patient will can come to you with any of this, and in that condition, we are going to start with the process of case taking. Then a patient diagnosis is made. Usually, it will be a provisional diagnosis, and we can call it as a final diagnosis only when the lab investigation is done. And once the lab investigation is confirmed, they go for the patient procedure, the intervention, medication, etc. And in our case, we don't have to wait until the lab report is out. We take the lab report just to confirm the diagnosis and also to see the prognosis, but not for the prescription. For prescription, homeopathy always needs only the symptoms. If you take the symptoms truly correctly, then that itself is enough for prescription. We don't have to wait until the report is available to us to prescribe, but we do the investigations just to know what's the situation the patient is having and whether it is a prognosis or a good prognosis or a bad prognosis. So the five basic strategies required are communication, critical thinking, teaching or learning, evidence-based practice, leadership and management. This is in general topic, not much related to homeopathy, but not much related, not in the sense, not purely related, but in general, what you learn in MPO or whatever, it's just the same thing coming over here. So, in the clinical condition, definitely not just in clinical, wherever the communication is very much important. It should be effective, culturally sensitive, and ethical to collaborate with the patients, families, community, and also other healthcare providers. It should be, communication can be oral, written, and in electronic formats. There should be critical thinking also when we apply it into our philosophy or our homeopathy. We can't simply give a medicine for a patient. We need to have a wide thinking, differentiate various medicines, and a critical thinking is very much required when we are going to give medicine for the patient. Comprehensive analysis is required. Inter and intra-professional collaboration is also required. There may be situations when you need to seek help of the professionals within your sector. Like you might have given some medicine and it is not working. Sorry. Yeah, and you need the help of some of your colleague, your friends, or seniors to know which medicine you should change to. Sometimes it will be indoor. Maybe the person is having some surgical condition and the person doesn't want to undergo a surgery. They want to see the options available in homeopathy. But just because the patient trusts us and patient is coming to us in homeopathy for a surgical condition and the patient doesn't want to be, you need to be very careful when you take up that condition, that situation, whether this is under homeopathic control or not. uh, if it is curable, not curable, but treatable by a, surgery or something, try to convince the patient to go for that. But if it is a cancer patient in a palliative situation, then you can come up. But for anything else, for you to make a rational decision, sometimes you need the help of people in the health sector or the allopathic health sector, because they are very good at diagnosis, all the better than us. They know about the clinical developments of that particular condition. So from them, we don't have to follow what they say exactly. They say that, okay, this is very much necessary. We can go back, check the textbook. We can see how much homeopathy can offer. But still, whenever we have to deal with a critical condition, we need our thinking also to be like that. We need to collaborate intra and also interprofessional. And then it's just a model. What all should be the factors involved in critical thinking skills? Teaching and learning. And this one, I don't have to say you the importance of once you are in homeopathic field or medicine in general. It's always told in India that once a child, not a child, but once a person or a student join for medical course, be that MBBS, BHMS, BAMS, or whatever, the person is destined to study until he is dying, he or she is dying. Every day. When you, some of you came to meet Dr. Partha that day when he came, and he showed his collection of books. And I asked him about his reading, and he told that every day he is reading. He orders such a lot of books. So every doctor who is much into clinical practice, when when if you are going to ask me personally, I don't read much. I read, but some other things, but not the homeopathic materia medica per se, because I'm not much into the clinical practice. But once you're in the clinical practice, very seriously, of course, you need to spend a lot of time, at least daily 1 hour, because I have heard this much of my senior doctors who are in clinical practice saying that they spend at least 1 hour reading Boric or any other materia medica book they like. So teaching and learning is very important until the last. um and it is very important when we come into a clinical practice. We need to be aware of what is happening currently, and what have been done earlier, what could be done. So the clinical situations is not just dealing with the patient giving some medicines. No, we need to include this fact also. And just a model. Leadership and management, I don't have to explain you much about this. You know the importance if you are running a clinic, the management, the leadership you should possess to run it successfully. Then evidence-based practice. Uh, Evidence-based practice, per se, if I say this is mostly to the allopathic manner, because they often change their medicines. They give some medicine, they study about its what is happening, the negatives, everything, and then they decide, okay, after 10, 15 years, they decide, okay, the negative effects of this drug is very vast, let's withdraw. And then they withdraw that medicine from the market. Then they may introduce another thing, then they withdraw another thing. So this is a everyday practice for them. So even the doctors who had passed out MBBS in 1980s, 1990s, they would be still reading what is happening, the current scenario. One day I was speaking to one of my friend who is specialized in respiratory medicine, and I was actually asking to her something related to tuberculosis. And while she was saying tuberculosis, though, I was asking to her about the tuberculin test. But while speaking about the tuberculosis, she's already specialized in respiratory medicine. So that's her topic. She will be getting into the details. For a moment, she forgot that I'm a homeopathic doctor and I really don't need their type of management, their medicine management. Still, she went into that. After to the tuberculin, she just directly went into the management. And the term she used is the current practice or the current evidence say by WHO about the treatment guideline to follow to treat tuberculosis. So that was the phrase she used. The current treatment guideline suggested by the WHO to treat tuberculosis is. So that is so I understood the main crux over there. This thing, the treatment guideline, every year or every 2 years, I don't know the sequence exactly, WHO comes up with a new treatment guideline. And not just WHO, every country comes up. India will be coming up. I think it was in this year or last year, India came up with new treatment guideline for anemia. So every time they are advancing their knowledge, they are doing some type of studies. So they always come up with a new treatment guideline. So that is why the evidence-based practice, they say that three things are involved in it. One is the current evidence. So they are always studying, they see this medicine is not working or this dose is not working. So change the plan. And that is based on their current evidence, the clinical expertise, and also the person's family preferences and values. These three things are given importance and they give that term evidence based practice. Nowadays, if you speak to any allopathic doctor about the medicine or the treatment, they are definitely going to use this word evidence based practice. Because I have some of MBBS friends, and if we are talking about some diseases, definitely, they are going to use this term. Nowadays, medicine is evidence based, and this evidence based, it's mainly on three pillars: the current evidence, the clinical expertise, and not just what the evidence says or the clinical expertise, but it is up to the patient whether the patient wants to follow that or not. So it's upon his preferences and values. The practice of medicine is being done by them. We are not that much because for us the medicines once proved and reproved are the we are not much into I mean up to now we were not able to prove that pulsatilla is useless or pulsatilla creates such negative effects, so we have to discard it. We don't have that situation. More and more medicines can add up in homeopathy, and nowadays those medicines that are being added also, it is just short acting remedies, the superficially acting remedies, so the locally acting remedies. It's not polycrus like pulsatilla or sulfur. It is now not getting proved nowadays. It's only that superficial local acting remedies only nowadays getting included in homeopathy. These are the three pillars of evidence-based medicine. And for evidence-based studies, the WHO ratings has been given. Evidence rating A means it requires at least one randomized control trial. This we'll be learning in epidemiology, what is randomized control trial in detail, but I can say you what is happening over here. They will be having two groups. In their case, when they have to prove or find out the efficacy of a medicine, the negative effects or whatever, they will be having or experimenting it with two groups. One group will be given current medication or no medication at all, and they become the control group. And another group will be in which the experimentation is done, like they are given the new medicine, and then they watch over for a period and see uh, which among the group the people are improving. So the randomized control trial is the highest evidence or a gold standard nowadays in case of evidences. So that is the evidence rating A. And then we have evidence rating B, which is well conducted clinical studies. But here the clinical no, non-randomized or control trial is not done over here. It is just the clinical studies. In clinical studies means patients will be given medicine, but there won't be any control group, any group in which no medicines are given. So no comparison will be there. In this case, actually, to conduct RCT, um, this one randomized control trial, its short form is RCT. It's very difficult for homeopathy to do this RCT, and that is actually where uh, us and allopathic system we have a problem or a controversy with, because they give importance to this RCT. They consider this when we go to epidemiology, we'll see the hierarchy of evidences, and you'll see this is not just the simple one, we'll have another type of hierarchy. And you see the top one is the RCT. And in homeopathy, we can't do this RCT because according to the principles of RCT, the medicine given to all the people who are in that experimental group should be same. Like if we are going to give pulsatilla 30 for acne, for example, every patient should receive pulsatilla 30. And when I say this, then itself, you know this is not going to work in homeopathy. We believe the principles of individuality, and we know pulsatilla 30. I mean, all the patients, if you take 30 patients with acne, all the patients will be needing pulsatilla 30. No, it may be some patients may need some other medicines, and even if it is pulsatilla, we can't say that all the people who need pulsatilla they will cure with only pulsatilla 30. No, some may be with pulsatilla 30, some may need to go even up to 10 m, 50 m, etc. So we know because of the principle of individuality we can't do this randomized control trial. We won't be daring because the principle of homeopathy uh, will be broken by that thing. The individuality we have to forget it, and once we forget individuality, there is no homeopathy existing over there. So there is the problem why we can never show our research at par with those people, allopathic people, and only one type of RCT that which we could do up to now. Maybe as the time changes, more scientific evidences come, we may be able to do. But as of now, what we can do is to do a RCT using our mother tincture. That we could do. But then, if we are going to do with mother tincture, uh, it is almost similar to the allopathic mode of medication, because in mother tincture it is the medicines direct um, juice or that material content is present exactly. So in case of allopathic people, they are taking that essence and making it in the form of some syrup or some tablets, and then they are giving. Our difference only we will be giving it in the form of mother tincture, which is a bit bitter, etc. Not in a fancy look of a syrup or a what is that a tablet. But then we know our medicines. When we say homeopathy, though mother tinctures are there, we don't advise to give anyone the mother tinctures for a long period, not even for a short period, only for a palliation, maybe we say. Otherwise, mother tincture is not advised. It is against to our principle. And our medicine, we always study it is acting in the dynamic way. and mother tincture is never acting dynamically. It is acting materially strictly only. So even if we do RCT using a mother tincture, it is similar to the basic principle what allopathic people are doing. We are not following the homeopathic method over there. So that lack of evidence A is one of our problem, that we are not considered, or we are always considered as pseudoscience or pseudoscientific, whatever they say, because of this problem. But then there are research centers which do this clinical studies, well conducted clinical studies, that is evidence rating B. We can have the patients and then we give the medicine, but not the same medicine, but we make it in such a way that even if the acne patients are coming, if it is not, even if it is not the Pulsatilla 30, but we give any medicine, any potency suitable to the individuality of that person. And then we do our clinical studies, and this is what we do. But they, of course, they don't accept, they will never accept this thing, because for them it is like, what is the meaning of giving different medicines for different persons? They will never understand that. So anyway, what homeopathy is nowadays doing, the research centers in homeopathy, they are doing the well conducted clinical studies. Then evidence rating C is actually some expert committee report or opinion or from clinical experience. This indicate an absence of directly applicable clinical studies of good quality. Usually this comes up at the time of emergency, when during COVID-19, when the vaccine was developed, people who were against two vaccines, they always had whether the vaccination trial was done or not. And I don't think much have been done at that time, because there was not time actually. COVID came, and within few months, vaccines were developed. So the actual process of this clinical trial during the vaccination development, the study should go on at least for a 1 year, I think. There are 5 phases for clinical trial, and the whole phase will go on maybe for 1 year, and then only it will be allowed in the market. And here, in case of COVID-19, it was not done. Maybe it was done the 1 or 2 stages. But in case of emergency, they can go for the committee reports, opinions, or clinical experiences, and that is evidence rating C. This one I will check and see, say what is happening with this. Then the next one is various aspects of case management. So here I had gone to the case management, how we do in case of homeopathy. So homeopathy, so we start with the detailed case taking, which is explained from aphorism 83 to 104. I don't think I have to explain you this. Dr. Patha might have taken you very excellently how to take a case, and that is being given by Hahnemann in the 5th edition of Organon from aphorism 83 to 104. Then we go for analysis and evaluation of the symptoms. We construct the totality of the case, make the first prescription, select the symptom, and consider the factors like dose, potency, repetition, mode of administration, etc., and follow up of a case. So case taking, I had completely avoided that. I hope you all know that. Ah, now I can take a break. Just someone of you, please explain me what is happening with case taking. I have seen your case taking of the AK, but I would like to know from aphorism 83 to 104, even if you are not mentioning what is happening or what Hahnemann told in each aphorism, can you just say me in short, how did Hahnemann explain to say the case taking or take the case taking process?
We cannot hear you, I think, Liman.
Oh, sorry,
I'm
sorry.
asking,
Okay.
I'm,
Now,
I'm,
now,
I'm oh, okay. I'm asking you, how did Hahnemann explain case taking in Organon? the fifth edition, from aphorism 83 to 104.
Okay, exactly. I don't remember, but the idea mainly is to allow the patient to narrate the complaints and the main complaints without interruption.
Yes.
That's one main point, and also to observe the patient as the patient speaks or walks into the clinic,
Mm-hmm.
and get the information also from those attending to the patient, family members or friends,
Mm-hmm.
if possible. And after that, after the patient narrates the symptoms, then only to inquire further into other details as required by homeopathy, like modalities and so on,
Yeah, it is
concomitants.
yeah, it's exact almost the same thing. Then I mean, just allow him to speak only if he is going away from some the main topic. Just get him back. Otherwise, don't interrupt. Just allow him to speak. And there is one sentence. I mean, I don't remember exactly the aphorism when I was a student. At that time, I used to study, but not after to that. Um, there is one aphorism in which Hahnemann says, every new symptom that person says starts with a fresh line. Such a sentence is there in one of the aphorism. So I remember during, I mean, I used to study like from 83 to 104. We had to actually study by heart what Hanuman is saying. Most of the, some of the aphorisms we had to not learn by heart, but we had to learn in which aphorism that particular thing is being told. So during my MD entrance, the question was one from that, in which aphorism the Hanuman says the fresh complaints, all the new complaints should be started with a fresh line. So it is somewhere in one of the aphorism it says. So it goes like that. And that's why I told you I don't want the aphorism number. It's so stupid. You need to know the process actually. But still, that's how we used to learn in India, back in India. Anyway, so the total concept is what you told the patient when he comes in. Even before we start asking him the name, the moment he is walking inside the clinic, according to Hahnemann, the process of case taking should be begun from the, and not just the, if it is possible. Nowadays, there is camera. During Hahnemann's time, it was not possible to watch the patient from the waiting area. Probably no, I think. But nowadays, we do have that. You might have seen the case taking of um, oh, who's that person? Oh, I forgot his name. The doctor from Greece. What's his name?
Vithokas?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Vithokas. Yeah, Vithokas. So he do have cameras outside to watch the patient during the waiting period, because the person, once he is inside the doctor's room, there are people who exactly changes their temperament. The actual temperament outside the waiting room is different, and once they come inside to the doctor's room, the temperament is different. So Vithokas and other famous eminent doctors, they do watch the patients outside the doctor's room also. The case taking starts from the, and then it starts at the moment the patient enters, and then it is being done by questioning. So you don't interfere in the first stage, just hear what the patient is saying. And once the patient complete all the complaints only, you go and fill each one. Then you ask the bystanders. Then you ask for the causations that is possible, the exciting cause, the maintaining cause, the occupation, the sexual sphere, his desires, his aversions, all those things. So every aphorism from 83 to 104, Hahnemann says each thing. So then after to that, in the case taking, the evaluation comes, and evaluation is very important, especially when we are going towards the repetization part. So here we are going to grade or rank the different symptoms according to their intensity, how deeply they reach into the organism, and mental symptoms are of course always given more importance, and according to the degree of peculiarity, we are going to grade the symptoms. That is called as the evaluation of symptoms. And now, when you're learning repertory, you will be learning the different evaluation done by the different stalwarts in homeopathy. Kent have a different type of evaluation. Likewise, all the people, Boger, Bonninghausen, they have different type of evaluations. And when you learn repertorization improper, you learn that Kent's repertory is based on Kent's evaluation, and Boger's repertory, the BBCR, is based on Boger's style of evaluation. These are the three main old repertory that which we are going to learn. And the next one will be Bonninghausen's. Bonninghausen's repertory based on his style of evaluation. You will learn, sir will be teaching you. I don't know whether you have already learned, but sir will be teaching you the different methods of evaluation according to them. And only then we can do the repertorization in that manner. So I had just mentioned the Kentinian method only because when I made this PPT, I was not sure which semester you were going to learn case taking. So I just put the basic one because we always follow the basic one, the Kentinian. Uh, Unknowingly, we do the BBCR and Boger, I mean the BBCR and also Bonninghausen method, but still, maybe it's always the Kent that we study from our initial years of homeopathy. So we are more close to what Kent's evaluation is rather than more to that of Bonninghausen or Boger. Even now, even if you are learning now, you might be learning Bonninghausen and Boger. You might have heard their name before, but their style of repertorization, their evaluation, you will be learning only this semester or the coming up semester also maybe. I don't know how much semesters you have repertorization. So, and these two things, because we study for a short period only, we tend to forget easily. So that's why I kept only Cantinian. Kent was the first one to introduce the scheme of analysis of the case and evaluation and also grading the symptoms. Kent has given the highest emphasis to mental generals as they reflect the innermost of the patient. So Kent actually had evaluated symptoms into general symptoms, common symptoms, and particular symptoms. That's how he classified the symptoms. And in the general symptoms were again classified into two, mental general and physical generals. This can be asked as a question, okay? Kent's style of evaluation, mostly in organon and also maybe in repertory. In mine, I'm not going to ask you. I already say you because I have different questions to ask. But yeah, this is an important question in organon and the repertorial part. So in Kent's style, the first one, the most important he gave is the general symptoms. Among them, the mental general and physical general. The mental general is again classified the first grade mental, where the symptoms of will be coming. Whatever the sentence the patient say with his will, his wish to do for himself. So that is the first grade mental. The second grade, all the emotions, love, hates, and emotions that comes underneath that. The third grade, it is basically regarding his intelligence, his understanding, and fourth grade is memory. So when he, I mean, this you will understand only when you use the repertory also. You give the points, you separate the symptoms, you give the medicine importance according to that gradation, and then you reach into the symptom. Then only you actually will understand what I mean by this, or what I mean by first grade, second grade, third grade, etc. But this is how Ken had given the importance. And in physical generals, the first grade will be the sexual sphere. Actually, Hahnemann had given much importance. Now we are saying about Kant, but Hahnemann basically had given much importance to ask questions about the sexual sphere. If the person is in a, or the patient is in a reproductive age group. But because of cultural impact, we don't ask this question unless it's so obviously some sexually induced disease. Otherwise, we generally don't ask. And Hahnemann had obviously given so much stress on this factor. So the first grade symptom is that the sexual sphere. And if it is females, it should include their menstrual history also, not just the history, the menstrual complaints or how the menstrual things are happening. Then the second grade symptoms will be more regarding to the appetite, desires, aversions, etc. The third grade, the things affecting the entire physical body, like the temperature, weather, bathing, all these things comes under the third grade. The common symptoms, the symptoms that are common to a particular disease or that are found in several patients as a common factor. And they are usually not much important when we are selecting the symptom unless they have peculiar modalities. For example, in case of fever, uh, you will be definitely having thirst. It's a very common thing because your body is losing temperature, dehydration is happening. So definitely you should be having thirst. And though we study medicines, fever with thirst, more than that, it is important to know medicines with fever and no thirst, or fever with thirstlessness. That is more important to know than medicines with fever and thirst because that's a common symptom. And there is another thing, another common example is in case of sore throat. In so case of sore throat, what we expect is 80 to 90 percentage of people who will have an amelioration taking hot water or warm water. And if someone is going to come with you with a hot water amelioration or warm water, of course you can think about ourselves, but it's not that necessarily. But if someone is coming to you with a sore throat which is ameliorated by cold water, then of course that symptom has to be given more importance. So that is the symptoms which are seen in many patients or is a common feature in a disease. That's what Hahnemann called as Kent called as common symptom, which shouldn't be given important much unless it has got peculiar modalities. Then third category is the particular symptoms, the symptoms which are related to a particular part or organ or functions of the body. So when we go through Kent's classification or evaluation, we see that Kent's medicine were mostly based on the generals and that too mental generals, followed by the physical generals. The other two symptoms or the common symptoms and particular symptoms are the, but Kent had not given much importance to these things unless there is some importance related to that. But when you do, I don't know, did you actually study Bogart and Bonninghausen's method of evaluation? Did sir reach up to that?
Not Bozier, right?
Not
Bonninghausen.
Bonninghausen?
Yeah, we
Bonninghausen,
touched
did it?
Bonninghausen, yes.
Yeah, so in Bonninghausen, there is a evaluation of one of the principle that he follows, that is grand generalization. Bonninghausen's method of grand generalization. Do you remember that?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So grand generalization is actually uh, a symptom that is present in one particular part. According to Bonninghausen, he give it a grand generalization, or he doesn't um, restrict it to that particular part. According to his principle, if a particular part is having that symptom, his other part of the body should also be having that symptom. That is the grand generalization. A local symptom, a particular symptom, he made it into affecting the whole body. So particular symptom, Boger converted it into affecting the whole body. That's why his idea of grand generalization came up. But according to Kent, he doesn't follow this grand generalization. For him, that particular symptoms remains particular itself in that restraint to one particular part. He had not gone for the grand generalization. And that's why these differences you will understand when you do the case taking. And when you follow that particular repertoire actually, um, if you were able, I mean, there are no actually master's courses over here, but if ever, uh, uh, I really don't know. In case of case taking and repertorization, we have MD courses. In BHMS, we just learned for 1 year, and during our practical time, uh, we will be given some cases, and it's not always easy to get a mental symptom from a patient. So I'll say you the reality. In second year and third year, we are having patients dealing at that time, case taking, everything. The live patient will be made. So somehow in second year and third year of BHMS, somehow we question him, and try to get some common, some mental symptom from that person. Okay, because we didn't know how to give medicine if we don't have the mental symptom, because our medicines are mostly given, or mostly given very much given importance to the mental symptoms. So in second year, third year, we don't keep put a symptom from our own, but somehow we poke the patient that much to get at least one mental symptom. If you're going to poke the patient a lot, at least we are going to get easily angered or easily irritated, and then you get one mental symptom, and you base, I mean, you, not you, I, and my friends also during our study. So we write one medicine at that time. But it was in the final year when all the three repertories were taught to us, Boger and Bonninghausen. And in case of Boger and Bonninghausen, if we have to use that repertory, it's not necessary we should have a mental symptom. So if the patient, it was at that year actually, with the case what I got, I didn't have to go deep into or make the patient say some random mental symptoms to prescribe a medicine. Whatever the patient told, I took it off. The same thing, nothing added from my part, or did it make him to say something more, nothing like that, only from his. And it was mainly peculiar symptoms or local symptoms that he was giving, and that is an indication to use Bonninghausen's repertory. So then I did the case, I mean, evaluation, and also medicine prescription, everything, repertorization based on Bonninghausen's repertory. And there were people who got the mental symptoms from the patient who used the Kent's repertory. And there were also people who used BBCR. So it was only in that year we had to use these things. But after to that, for MD, um, they need to study one of the repertory in detail, and they have to present a thesis based on that repertory. Like one of my friends, she did MD in CR, and her topic was management of acute urinary tract infection. Are you there? Can you hear my voice?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, you can.
I mean, I heard some tone coming in background, so just wanted to confirm. So yeah, her thesis was the management of not acute, it was chronic urinary tract infection using Bonning, yeah, Bonning-Hudson's repertory. So she had to show that our medicines work in chronic UTI. Not just that, the case taking in all those 30 patients should be according to the way Bonninghausen says, and how the Bonninghausen's case taking is done according to that. So she shouldn't have any case in which the mental features were very much characteristic. She shouldn't take anything, because Bonninghausen hasn't given much importance to mental symptoms. And if you have learned his repertory, his mental chapter, mind chapter, it is having only 17 symptoms. 17 rubric actually, not symptoms, sorry. 17 rubrics in the mind chapter. And if you take Kent is like 500, something around rubrics have been used by Kent in the mind chapter. So that is the variation. So according to this, her thesis, she shouldn't have, if she had a patient with UTI with characteristic mental features, either she had to do some manipulation, she had to avoid all those mental symptoms from that patient, completely present only his peculiar or the physical symptoms, and then give the medicine according to do the case taking according to Bonninghausen style, and give the repertorization also done according to the Bonninghausen style. So that is how we do it back over there. According to the case we get, we don't do any manipulation. We basically go to these three uh, uh, um, repertories from the past. And nowadays there are newer repertories like computerized repertory is the uh, radar is the, and so many else. Synthesis, synthesis is the, and many much more other nowadays available. I'm not much aware of that. Sir can be teaching you all those things. So accordingly, you can change the repertory. Then after to that, yeah, Hahnemann had done a classification of generals and uncommon. But here there is something to be noted. Though Hahnemann made a classification, he didn't give a proper evaluation grading system like that of Kent. Kent had done that grading properly, the first grade, second grade, third grade, among the Mendel and also physical. So Hahnemann didn't give that, but he classified the symptoms into generals and uncommon. And here, when we say Hahnemann's generals, you shouldn't go and think it is the same as that of Kent's general. No, it is not the same. Kent's general was actually pertaining to that particular person, his symptoms. But Hahnemann's general is actually Kent's common symptoms. Understand the difference? Hahnemann's generals is actually Kent's common symptoms, and Hahnemann's uncommon is actually Kent's general symptoms. Don't get confused. Okay. Now, if we go to the principles, you will understand. In aphorism number 153, Hahnemann says about characteristic symptoms, where he uses the term, if you have your Organon of Medicine, the 5th edition, or even the 6th edition, or you can Google and see also, you will see aphorism number 153, where Hahnemann gives definition for characteristic symptoms. I don't remember whether he used the term characteristic or not. I have forgotten that. But there is a aphorism in which he uses the term. Four terms are the RUPS, that is rare, uncommon, peculiar, striking, singular symptoms. This is how he explained. And that is actually the characteristic symptom explanation or the definition he is giving. And in short, we say call it as RUPS, RUPS, RUPS. So it is the rare, uncommon, peculiar, singular symptoms or striking symptoms. So that is actually Hahnemann's uncommon symptom or the characteristic symptom. And that is actually Hahnemann's characteristic symptom, which is same to that of Kent's general symptom, which is the symptoms individualizing that patient. And Hahnemann's general symptoms is actually Kent's common symptoms, that which is seen in many persons, or that is generally present in every patient. So when you learn repertory, I'm very sure sir will be differentiating all these things. You might be learning, maybe you may not, so maybe teaching only a few of it, very important, so that you don't get confused. But in case you are learning about other stalwarts, there will be terms that is confusing. They may be using the same terminology, but in a different meaning. Like here, if you keep in mind, okay, Hahnemann's generals is same that of Kent's generals, you are going to make a mistake. Though they are using the same terminology, both of their concepts are very different. Hahnemann's generals is actually Kent's common symptoms. Hahnemann's uncommon symptoms are actually Kent's general symptoms. So don't be confused. Then after that evaluation, we go for the totality. We make the totality, and totality is always when you take case, a lot of symptoms will be coming, HPC, family history, a lot of things will be coming. It may not be fitting in altogether, it may not be fitting in. So we need to construct the totality, which is in whole. It has a form, it has a coherence, and it also has got an individuality. The totality, according to the definition, it need to reflect the inner essence of the disease, and it should have the details necessary to distinguish the individual case from others of similar nature, according to Stuart Close. So when you are doing the totality, I mean, there's also, even if you don't know, sir will be teaching you that when you take case in detail, you are never going to include, or you may be getting 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 symptoms. It depends upon the patient. They may say any symptoms, but once you decide to give the medicine, you may not be giving, or you may not be considering all the 8 symptoms at a while. You will be giving importance to the most important one, the most complaint, or most affecting the patient most. You will be taking only those symptoms for a while, and then others will be kept for a differentiation or other process, but it doesn't come into the totality. In totality, when you take, it should be complete in its form, coherence, and individuality. So only after taking a lot of case, we will understand in proper how to take the totality. I remember I used to do it from my second BHMS, but I learned the exact process of making a totality only when I was doing my MD. At that time only I understood what exactly totality and how to make that totality. So after we make the case, the erection of totality or whatever, then we have to go and decide the homeopathic medicine. And we have to take the simillimum, and that also includes the medicine and also the proper dose. And the homeopathic dose, it includes the potency, the quantity, the form, the number of administration of the medicine, etc. Starting with the potency, so simillimum, how to select, I don't have to teach you. You can either use your repertory or your materia medica knowledge. The best ideal method is actually to use repertory. Find out at the end of the repertorization, you will be ending with a lot of medicines. And you need to consider at least the first 7 or 8 medicines, and it is never told that you should give the first medicine that comes in the process of repertorization. Because after two repertorization, maybe suppose you get acid, sulfur, calcarea, and pulsatilla. That are the first 4 remedies that came up in the after to the process of repertorization. Then again, ideally, it is told that you should go back to your Materia Medica book, read these 4 drugs in detail from all the books which is available, and then decide the most suitable remedy. Because when we created totality or the repertorial totality, the rubrics, there were many symptoms which we had avoided in that process. So we have to include those symptoms also at this last moment to differentiate which among those 4 medicines is best. So that is done when we are reading Materia Medica. So that's the ideal method. But there are homeopathic doctors who stops with repertorization. They may be just giving the first or the second medicine that comes after to repertorization. And there are many doctors. I think Vitolkas is one of them, and another one is uh, the person, Dr. Vijay. He passed away actually. He's the proponent of predictive homeopathy, and they give more importance to a medicine uh, if that is the only medicine that is present under that rubric. One particular rubric and only medicine, they give more importance to that. So it depends actually upon your practice, upon your experience to decide that particular medicine. But usually those who are in the starting stage, they can't take risk with their clinic or their practice. So we would be generally going and then find out a set of common medicines. And either you can end with but ideally take your Materia Medica book, go through the 4 remedies, and then choose one remedy. So that's why usually the first prescription for a chronic disease is better to give SI. Take the case taking the time properly, study the case properly, find out the medicine, and give the patient the medicine in chronic case. Okay, in chronic case, in acute you don't have that much option, but in chronic case, say give the simillimum to the patient only in the second visit after you have done all the studies. So that's how the simillimum is selected. And if it is the dose, it depends on potency, quantity, and all these things. And potency, it is selected on the basis of the following: the susceptibility of the patient, nature of disease, nature of medicine, the similarity of the medicine with the disease, and the previous treatment. There's so many conditions and criteria. And I don't know, have you learned this in Stuart Close? It is in Stuart Close. Stuart Close explained how the dose has to be, or the potency has to be decided according to these features. So it is from the Close philosophy I have taken these things. So based on the susceptibility, if the susceptibility of the patient is high, it is the highest potency that is required. In case of children, young, robust people, sensitive, irritable, nervous, and intellectual persons, they all have high susceptibility and they require high potencies. But opposite, if it is old age, phlegmatic, dull, sluggish individual, laborers who are not using their brain or the intellectual capacity is very less, deaf, dumb, etc., they have got less susceptibility and hence require low potencies. Depending on the nature of disease, if the patient is having pathological symptoms with gross structural changes, especially the typical gout or the typical appearance of the rheumatoid arthritis, where the structural changes have already appeared, or in case of cancer, the advanced cancer, where the pathology has maximum came out, better to go for low and medium potencies. Yeah, the malignant cases, rapidly fatal, go for low potencies. When the vital reaction of the patient is poor, it requires low potencies. But when the patient has increased vital reaction means in another sentence, he is having high susceptibility, then go for high potencies. In terminal conditions, when the vitality is very low, even Hahnemann had advised to go for antipathic remedies or mesmerism. The symptoms in which the mental symptoms are dominating, better go for high potencies. And that is why Kent has given importance. Before to Kent, people never used to give higher potencies. They used to stop with 1C, 2C, and up to 30C. Used to finish with that. 6C, even 30C was the higher potency at that time. It was mainly 6C, 10C that they used to prescribe. But it was Kent who started with his higher potencies, and he used the term, the theory of octaves. He used to go from 30C to 100C, 1M, 10M, 50M, 50M, then CM, MM, DM potencies, and that's how he started with his higher potencies. So because he gave importance to mental symptoms and he realized the importance of higher potencies. Based on the medicine nature, if it is nosodes, better to give the medicine in high potencies. And if it is organ remedies or biochems, organ remedies like when we say liver complaints, then Leptandra is a medicine. Like that, Chelidonium is one. So organ remedies like that or biochems, then better to go for low or medium potencies. And biochem remedies, actually when we are giving like in a biochem manner, we actually give only the 6x, 12x medicines or even the 3x. Otherwise, if we are going to give natramur, it is actually a biochem also. But if we are going to give patient natramur in form of a biochem, we are obviously going to give the patient in a 3x or a 6x manner. But if you are going to give natramur in a homeopathic manner, like in a dynamic way, we obviously have to go natramur 200, 1M or whatever you think. So if it is organ remedies or biochem remedies, better to go like low or medium potencies. And this is the same principle they use when they prescribe actually tinctures for the organ remedies. The same thing. When Leptandra is given for liver complaints, it's mostly given in the form of tincture because of the same principle. Then the similarity of the medicine with the disease. Greater the similarity of the pathogenesis of medicine with the disease, the greater will be the susceptibility or the higher potencies is indicated. And if there is only less similarity or medicine is only partially indicated, better go for low and medium potencies. So when you are taking case, you are not getting a proper simillimum. One of the medicine is covering 2 or 3 symptoms. I mean, every 3 or 4 medicines are there, and all the 3 or 4 medicines are covering 1 or 2 symptoms. There is no one single medicine that is covering the totality. It can happen because of 2 reasons, either not 2 reasons, some reasons like either the case taking was not done well, or the second reason is you are not aware of Material Medicare that much, or the third possibility is that uh, the person's pathology or the pathological symptoms is more that we are not able to get the characteristic symptoms. So in those conditions, rather than going and giving a high potency, always give a low and medium potency that is less than 30 C, etc. And then Hahnemann says also the other stalwarts that wait after to that prescription, there is some change that is going to happen in the patient. There will be some aggravation seen, or maybe some symptoms may be cleared, and then we get a complete picture in which another medicine may be completely suited. So we can go for that. So the initial condition, when you understand that it is a organ remedy or a partially acting remedy, it is not complete covering the totality properly, go for a low and medium potencies. Based on the previous treatment, persons who have already taken a particular potency with no apparent benefit, though the medicine is indicated, may be administered higher or lower potency. Like you have been given the patient sulfur 200, you're very sure the patient is sulfur itself, but there is no action you are getting in sulfur 200. Either go for sulfur 30 or go for a sulfur 1. It's up to you. According to Kent will be always saying go higher, higher, because Kent had always told to start with the lower potency, the 30C. So 30C have already given according to Kent. So then if 200 is not working, then according to Kent, you need to go to the 1. But if it was not Kent's method that was followed, you directly started with 200C. And the 200C had not given you any action or any result. And if you're sure that your medicine that you selected is correct, and that the patient has not intervened also, he has not done anything to antidote the action of the medicine, then you can go for a lower potency or higher potency according to the other criteria. If a person has already taken large number of drugs in material doses, means a large number of allopathic medicines, its susceptibility is lowered. That means require lower potencies. Later, when the drug effects pass off, then we can think of giving medium and higher potencies. Like a patient is coming to you, maybe in a terminal stage, he was taking a lot of medicines, but not in cancer. Maybe, yeah, hypertension, I can say you. He was taking a lot of allopathic medicines, and then one day he felt like he wants to stop all those things, and he is coming to you. And if he's not having other complaints, there is no risk, you can, when he comes at that time, maybe you start with low potency, but after you give a wash off period or waiting period, when you ask the patient to gradually stop the allopathic medicine, and when the drug effects pass off, then go to the medium and higher potencies. Hypersensitive patients who prove every remedy they take, they should be given low and medium potencies. Persons continuously exposed to the influence of drugs, and drugs, when I say, include alcohol also, or the other narcotic drugs also, they require low potencies. So this is actually based on Stewart laws. Now, how we do the repetition? Following general rules could be laid down about repetition. As soon as an adequate response is observed, further repetition is stopped. When you get the adequate response, wait. Wait until it passes off. Don't interfere. As long as the response is continuing, the remedy is not repeated. Let the remedy do its function. Don't involve or don't interrupt. Cessation of progress is not to be taken as an indication for repetition. Even if there is a stoppage, just wait for a while, confirm that nothing is happening in the body, then only try to interfere. The only indication for repetition is the return of the symptoms that have disappeared under the action of the remedy. There are doctors, I should say, who don't repeat, or they do repeat only when this sentence or this sentence is happening. Otherwise, they don't repeat. But there are doctors who repeat also. It depends upon how you practice, the success rate you see, the experience you have. And all those factors, how it to be done. But ideally, you're getting a response means don't interfere, just let the medicine to act by its own. Time of administration in homeopathy, most remedies are best given at bedtime. Sulfur is best given on an empty stomach in the morning, because if sulfur is given at night to a case not having insomnia, sulfur will be giving rise to insomnia. But if the patient is insomniac, then give sulfur at bedtime. That will put the patient to sleep. A remedy should not be administered either before or during the period of aggravation. It should be administered after the period of aggravation. This similar manner you might be learning when you were learning homeopathy, how to treat um, alternative disease, or how to treat the diseases which are having periodicity or paroxysmal in nature. You are not advised to give the medicine during his paroxysmal stage. Only after it passes off, we should give the medicine. So in disease characterized by periodicity, a deep acting remedy should not be administered just before or during a paroxysm. It is always to be given after to the paroxysm. When I'll just finish up with this last two thing. And when prescribing for menstrual troubles, the remedy very often has to be selected on constitutional grounds and is best administered immediately after the menses, so that sufficient time is allowed for the remedy to take hold of the patient. For relief of pain of menstrual colic, some superficial remedy has to be administered during the menses, which means that if the patient is coming to you with a menstrual complaint, don't give, if the patient is having menses at that time, don't give the constitutional remedy at that time. If the patient is having too much colic, the menstrual colic, better give some other medicine, short acting remedy during that time. Ideally wait. If the patient is able to adjust or go on with that pain, better allow it to go on its natural process and give the constitutional remedy only after the menses had gone, or menses had finished. And I hope you all should be knowing which is our snapshot remedy for menstrual colic. Can you say me that? I'm very sure you should be knowing. Are you all there?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, you know the snapshot remedy. I mean, we don't have to think anything else.
What is a snapshot? Sorry.
Uh, I mean, you don't have to take even case taking like that. A patient is coming to you with a menstrual colic, then you just prescribe that. It is going to act.
Would McFoss help?
Math 6x in warm water. It's going to bring about some relief. We don't have to take a detailed case taking. Usually,
you
it is
give that-
better.
Would you give that in cell salt or in homeopathic potency?
6x. You don't give in potency
Okay.
because it is the lowest. That's why I told you snapshot, because we are not even sure. Whenever we are going to give a 30C to 100C, we should be very sure that the medicine is suiting for the patient, the case taking, the simillimum it is. If we are not sure, better go for the 6x or the lowest potency, the tincture, 3x, etc. So in all those emergency condition, when we give, like a patient is having asthmatic condition, and not during asthma, we can just give him Epicac 3x, iodine 3x, then grandilia tincture. It depends on that, the symptoms that we get. But we don't have to be very sure case taking for these medicines to be prescribed like we prescribe for RSAT 30. We don't give ourselves, a patient just comes to us. We don't have time to take detailed case taking or anything. One of the best remedy for asthmatic attacks, um, it's actually the Blatta orientalis tincture. It's so offensive. It's so offensive, my God. But that is very acting during a asthmatic attack. The Blatta is made from the cockroach, so it's very offensive. But Blatta tincture is very much acting. So you don't have a case taking time, but the patient needs something, you can just give that and go. But like that, you shouldn't give Asal 30 or Calicup 30 or any other medicine. You shouldn't give. For that, we need to go through the case taking. We need to get all the aggravation, amelioration. We should see that, okay, it is matching with the ASAD nature. Then only go for the dynamic potency or the centesimal potency, the high potency. Otherwise, all the things without case taking, it should be always this lower potency. It shouldn't act dynamically, which means the lower potencies when we are giving, it is acting only in the level of the in the materialistic body. They are taking in, and then because there is a material content, the materialistic action is taking place, and it should pass away once the material thing had gone from that patient's body, like via his natural excretions, stool or urine. The medicines, when it passes away, the action also goes. But once it is in 30C, 200C, because of that process of potentization, the medicine, we are giving that extra energy. That's how the principles of vital force is also coming out with it. That we believe by the process of potentization, we are giving that dynamic energy. And in case of this tincture, we are not doing any potentization. We are not doing any potentization for 6x or 3x. So we don't care what happens with the body because it will act only materialistically, and then via the natural excretions, the medicine's action will pass off, or in a few days it will pass off. But that's not the case with those 30C, 200C, 1M, etc. As the potency increases, the potentization that is being given is also increasing. So the way it acts dynamically will be too much, and it is not going to pass off easily. So when you can't give 30 or 200 just without thinking anything. At that time, if you don't have time, go for a lower potencies, but never the higher potencies. So someone is coming to you with menstrual colic, without taking any case, you can just give Macfos 6x. It can be repeated, frequently repeated also. And the patient will be feeling, warm water. We give the medicine. Macfos actually acts better when it is given in warm water. That is the basic principle. But when we compare to the allopathic medicine, there is the aspirin that they gave for the heart attack or that angina, where the patient have to dissolve the medicine in water, not warm water, any water it will get dissolved, I think, and they take that. So most of the patients are not the patients, the people, they know that for heart complaint, for the heart pain or the angina, allopathic give medicine like this dissolved, and that will vanish or that will reduce even the heart pain. So they have a psychological belief that when we give a medicine in warm water, it is also getting dissolved. And when they take, they feel like, okay, it is a kind of a psychological impact that is happening. So they feel like aspirin is also acting like that. So our medicine is also acting. So it should be a painkiller. Likewise, it is acting, but that's not the thing. It's acting in their mind. But according to our principle, Macfos 6x acts better in hot water when given in hot water or dissolved in warm water. So you can give like that. But the actual remedy, if you think the patient is lactasis 30 or pulsatilla 30 or 200 or whatever, give that only after to the menses. In asthmatic states, the constitutional remedy is best administered after every attack is treated with a related superficially acting remedy. That's why when you're having a patient with asthmatic condition, you have started giving Calicarb. It's always told that when he is having an acute attack, either he shouldn't be given any remedy or can be given a placebo or at the max, if it's going to be extremely severe because you have just started the treatment only, maybe his next asthmatic attack comes and it can go into a serious condition, so maybe you can give him some of the tincture or Ipecac or whatever 3x I told you to keep with them in case of extreme emergency. Otherwise, better not to interfere, just give him the placebo. But ideally, all these medicines should be given, the deep acting remedy should be given after to the attack, not during the paroxysm. An antipsychotic remedy will have to be administered sometime in the course. In cases treated in this fashion, progressively longer periods of remission are observed prior to final disappearance. Tuberculin is best administered in the quiescent stage of the patient. So conclusion, a homeopathic physician employs a minimum dose and has little use for maximum tolerated one, because this maximum tolerated dose is a concept of allopathic people. They go for what is the maximum tolerance the patient can have for a drug in which he is not developing any symptom, any negative effects. But we don't have to bother because we always give only the minimum dose. So the proper dose in homeopathy is as important as the simlimum for cure of an individual. If any mistake is made in the selection of simlimum or the potency or proper repetition and its administration, the chances of failure are high. So I would say that the selection of simlimum is not that much hard if you have done your case taking properly and you know Materia Medica well. And almost 80% of homeopathic doctors, 80 to 90%, they can select the simlimum. Mostly it is easy. I mean, not that easy, but if you know Materia Medica properly, case taking properly, you will reach the simlimum. But this is the other factors, the potency, the repetition, the administration, where we are not sure about it, that results in the failure. And these things we learn only by experience. So regarding the criteria, we have done everything except with the follow-up of a case, and we are going to stop here. Can anyone of you take a what is that? A screenshot, or have you already taken? Not I close this recording. Can someone take a screenshot?
Should I take? Or Lenny taking?
Anyone of you take and please send me.
You take lah. All the while you
Okay,
take and
okay.
so you take.
I
You take.
took one.
Yeah, okay.
Wait, I share.
Send in the group, okay? So I can immediately enter your.
Is
So
it okay?
after the
I
class,
send.
I immediately enter your attendance. Otherwise, I will just
taking-
forget.
Yeah, all the while she is taking, so let him handle.
Okay, right. So this PPT I have sent you already, so I don't have to send you. Okay. So we'll stop there and see next Monday.
This PowerPoint already sent, is it?
Yeah, I have already sent.
Yeah.
Come on,
How about the first one, PPT?
The first one, the remaining one is remaining, na? I'll send now. Yes, I'll send now. That one I'll send. Okay, and I'll check that link also, what is happening with that link. Anything else?
No. Okay. Good.
Okay, so see you on Monday, next Monday.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
See you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Doctor.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.